Hi, my name is Brielle Rosati and I'm the program director at IS183 Art School. I love art of all kinds and think it's important to remember that art making can be the perfect activity to stay engaged and inspired even when you're stuck at home. Today, I'm going to show you some basic hand sewing techniques that can be used to make any number of creative projects, from pillows to clothing and to my personal favorite, plush. So the creations that you see next to me are called pooties, and I make them by hand using some of the sewing techniques that I'm going to be teaching you today. I'd like to start out by just showing you the variety in fabric choices that I use. Some are fleece, some are fur, I use felt or even faux leather for their faces, and so you can really use any fabric that you have at home. You might actually have fabric from a sewing store, or you might have a towel or even some old clothing that you can use for fabric in your creations. Let's get started. To start off, you might want to make yourself a pattern. This one is very simple and you can just use any kind of paper. This is what I use to make the mini pooties. And the purpose is just to make sure that your front piece and your back piece of fabric are the exact same size. After you make your template, you can get out your fabric, and when you're tracing it, you want to be sure to use your fabric as wisely as you can. So you don't want to just plop it down in the middle and trace around it, because then you might be wasting the fabric around it. Instead, you want to put it all the way off as much as you can, sort of to one side. You can then trace around it using any kind of marker, and I like to pick a color that's sort of similar, so I went with this kind of beige color, and you can use that to trace all around. Once you have traced your pattern, you can do a second one. From there, you can cut them out, and you'll end up with two matching pieces. From there, I followed the same process to make an oval patch that can be used for the face. So today I'm going to be using black thread so that it's easier to see on screen. And this is an embroidery thread, so it's a little bit thicker than your traditional sewing thread. If you're using a thinner thread today, you might want to double over your string all the way so that the two ends meet, and then tie your knot. However, since this thread is a little bit thicker, I don't need it to be doubled, so I'm just going to tie the knot on one end. I'm going to actually tie a few knots sort of on top of each other just to make sure that it doesn't pull through when I start sewing. I'll do 3 just to be safe. The first stitch I'm going to show you is a whip stitch. So what you're going to be sort of doing is moving around the edge of the patch in a corkscrew motion. Before we get started sewing, you're going to want to pin down your patch so that it stays in place. You can just do maybe one on top. And one down off to the bottom. This will make sure that as you're sewing around, your patch doesn't shift over to be onto the other side. So you want to start so that your knot is on the back side so that you won't see it when your piece is complete. So I'm going to start just a little bit in from the edge of the patch and then pull it all the way through. So you'll see on the back that it's secured with the knot, and then it's coming out the front, right like that. So again, you're going to be moving around the outside of the patch in sort of a corkscrew. So I'm going to then go down through the fabric just on the outside of the patch, like this, and then back up. So this next stitch you'll see is just the same length inside the edge of the patch as this one was before it. So again, you're going to repeat that same movement. So you're going to go up and then out just along the outside of your patch again. And one more time. And you're going to continue this all the way around the whole patch until you get to the very end. Out through the outside And so you'll want to keep doing, depending on what fabric, see how this kind of pulled through? That's okay, you can just pull it right back behind. So you're going to keep going around and around like that, all the way around till you get to the end of that patch. When you get all the way around to the end, you'll want to tie a knot to secure the end of your stitches. So a nice way to do that is to just do a little stitch exactly where your string came out, pull it through so that there's a loop here, and then just take your needle and put it through the loop and pull it tight. And you can do that twice. So you'll want to make another little stitch exactly kind of right there in the fabric where your string came out. Make a loop, and then take your needle and put it through your loop and pull it tight. So you can use that same technique again with little patches to make eyes or other facial features. When you're finished with that, the next step is going to be to sew your two pieces together so that you can later stuff it. I like to sew them inside out so that you can't see the stitches at the end. So that means good fabric side to good fabric side will be facing together so that the inside is facing out. And you can line those up. And again, you can use pins to secure around your fabric like this, all the way around. So that your sides are matching. Another thing you can do is use a binder clip like this, if you don't have pins, and clamp the outside. You'll want to make sure that you do it at the very edge so that you have room to make your stitches on the inside of it. So you can either continue on using the whip stitch that we already learned, or you can use a different stitch called the running stitch. So I'm going to tie off the end of my string again. And if you're going to start by doing the whip stitch again, you can put your needle through just a little bit inside the edge, just like we did a little bit inside the edge of the patch for the face. And you'll just go around, behind again, and through. This is the same technique that we had done earlier. Another option is to do the running stitch. So the way that that works, instead of redoing my whole thread, I'm just going to show you from where we left off right here. That stitch is just going in a straight line up and down and up and down and up and down. So since I'm starting with the string coming out the top here, the next thing will be to go down. So I just go down and up. And down and up. And you'll just keep repeating that. So what you'll see along your fabric is sort of a dashed line. I'll show you that. It's kind of hard to see because it's a little fuzzy, but you'll start to see the dashed line coming as you sew. Either one of these methods works well for around the outside. So you can continue on all the way around, but you'll want to leave a small gap. I leave the small opening on the bottom. Once you go all the way around, you can leave your string and needle attached, and that's when you can flip it inside out or right side out. So you'll see that now all of your stitches are hidden on the inside. I typically wouldn't use black thread for white fabric like this, but even if you did, it's still pretty difficult to see your stitches since they're all now hidden inside. So now you have this little opening on the bottom that you can use to stuff your stuffed animal. You can use polyfill stuffing like this that can be found at any craft store or Walmart, and it's also used to stuff pillows. Or you can even use something else like rice or beans to make it more of a little beanbag. After you stuff your creation, you can use the needle and thread that's still attached to sew up the rest of the way, and you'll have your finished character. Some other things that I do are add trim that I just sew on around the face as I'm doing the whip stitch around the face patch. You can also add things like this, like a little pouch to put any kind of treasure you have around the house in it. And that's all. I hope you learned something and make something great today. I would love to see the creations that you make, so please be sure to upload photos on social media and tag IS183 Art School. Thank you, and keep making art.